All right. Now you can hear me, right? For those of you watching online, we're getting there. Just give us a minute. Okay. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 is where we're going to be tonight. I know this is not the greatest format, but it's the only way that I can put it online. You guys not be in it because you don't want to be in it, probably. I know Janice wants to be in it, but on YouTube. Yes, you do. Don't lie. You're in church. Second, chapter 1. Can you believe the last Wednesday we had together was March of 2020? That's how long it's been. That's crazy, isn't it? Normally you wouldn't be able to, right? If you guys have things that you would like to, like topics you would like to dive into that are not going to be addressed in church or too deep for a sermon or something, I would like to know them so that we can do them here, because that's what this format is for. And everybody has their Bible with them today, don't they? You guys are so good. We want you to start bringing your paper Bibles to church on Sunday as well, which I know is hard for some people, but if I can get you to read it in here, maybe I can get you to read it at home. Second Corinthians chapter 1. We're only doing verses 3 through 7 tonight. But I wanted to talk about this because I thought this was kind of important. It kind of goes with what we've been talking about over the past couple weeks about individuality. And, this whole individuality kick thing for a lot of people is kind of weird because you can contort it to make it feel like you're making your religion about you, but it's actually the opposite. You're making it about God because God created you, right? So when you give glory to God, you're blessing him, right? In the only way that you can. How do you, let me ask you this question. How do you bless God? Do what? Talk to him, okay? How else? What? Bless God? Why is bless God a weird word? Why does that make you feel uncomfortable? God doesn't need to be blessed. Why were you created? To bring him glory. What does God want? Is that blessing him? Yes. Don't be uncomfortable with it. It's not like you can go out, you can't like, okay, that's fair. But there's nothing you can do to bless God, right? You can't be like, I'm going to go feed the homeless, right? You can't do that. All you can do is bring him glory. So how do you bring him glory? You bring him glory through your individuality, by doing what you were created to do. Okay. So if the only way God is blessed is by you doing his will, that kind of changes your whole outlook on how you go about your day, doesn't it? So if you wake up in the morning and let's just be honest, okay? The majority of people do not wake up in the morning and think to themselves, how can I please God today? Am I correct in that statement? Right? So usually when we wake up in the morning, we think, I wonder how my day's going to go. I've got this and this and this to do at this time and this time and this time. I've got this is on my mind. I'm thinking about this. I'm looking forward to this. I'm not looking forward to this, right? And hopefully you're in the practice of waking up and thanking God for another day, which is your start of blessing him. Why would God give you another day? Why did you not wake up dead this morning? Not that you can wake up dead, but you get what I'm saying. Why did you not wake up dead? Right, because he has stuff he wants you to do. Right? So the stuff he wants you to do is how you bless him. So you need to start your day out. Pleasing is the wrong term. I'll admit that right now. But you need to start your day out thinking, how can I bless God? And that does feel weird to say, but I want you to start getting comfortable with it. It's just like you calling yourself holy. Right? You say, oh, I would never call myself holy. I'm not a holy person. If you believe in Jesus Christ, he makes you holy. So by you denying the fact that you're holy, you're actually denying the power of Christ. Right? So although we feel uncomfortable with it, there's no way I can bless God. Yes, you can. Do his will. There's no way I can be holy. Yes, you can. You're covered by the grace of Jesus Christ, and he is holy. Therefore, you are holy. All right. So how do we define comfort? When I say the word comfort, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Just say it. A blanket. A fuzzy blanket? Is it warm or cold? It's warm. Right? If I say comfort food, name a comfort food. Spaghetti? Get out. Gravy and mashed potatoes. Spaghetti. Blech. Soup, maybe. Right? For some people. Chicken soup is like comfort food. Not for me. I think that's disgusting too. If a car is comfortable, what is it about the car? It just feels right, right? The seat feels good. All the controls are in the right place. So how do you define comfort then? Lack of discomfort. That's a good way to put it. How about, who is comfort all about? Why would God ever want you to be comfortable? He doesn't. All right, let's remember that. So, do we have the capability to bless God? Yes. Own it, right? It's uncomfortable. It feels weird. You're not taking credit. You're giving God the glory back that he gave to you. Does God want you ever to be comfortable? No. All right, you ready? 2 Corinthians chapter 1. Let's just read verse number 3, and we'll see how far we get. Blessed be the God, or blessed, however you prefer. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort. Okay, so we've already started this out, and we're in a little bit of trouble. So it starts out, it says, blessed be God. Well, how can God be blessed? The only way that God can be blessed is if you do his will. Correct? Okay. And then it breaks up the Trinity. It says, God the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. And then it says, the Father of mercies. What is mercy? Not getting what you deserve, right? Okay. The Father of mercies and God of all comfort. Interesting. So maybe, just maybe, we've messed the word comfort up. Maybe comfort actually means something different. Because I cannot see how God would ever want me to be comfortable. Because if I'm comfortable, I am not relying on him, correct? If I'm comfortable, I'm not motivated, correct? If you put me in my little leather poofy chair where I can put my feet up, and then my wife comes in and asks me to empty the dishwasher, I am too comfortable to get up and do it. Okay? Comfort. So if God is the God of all comfort, then God can't be talking about fuzzy blankets and spaghetti. He can't be. Now, if I ask you, how do you comfort somebody? What would you say to that? Give them what they need, okay? How else? Tara, how would you comfort somebody? Showing them compassion. How do you show somebody compassion? I want you to say out loud what you're thinking in your head. A hug. Perfect answer, right? So give them what they need, which is what? A hug. Being there for them. Huh? Don't get ahead, Janice. Don't get ahead. Janice says if you've already been through something that they're going through, you can be a comfort to them. You want to come up here and teach? Are you sure? You got it. That's where we're going tonight. So comfort cannot be about comfort, right? It cannot be about me being content, I guess is the way to put it. So if we're talking about comfort, and then from a human being perspective, if we talk about comfort, we're talking about being alongside somebody, sitting down next to them, listening to them, drying their tears, giving them a hug, giving them comfort. If giving them comfort is being alongside of them, what are you actually doing when you're alongside somebody? You're holding them up, right? You're preventing them literally from falling apart, falling down, losing it. So what are you doing? If you think about a wall that's crumbling, and if you put a bunch of 2x4s against that wall to stop it from crumbling, what are you doing to the wall? Bracing it, supporting it, strengthening it, right? So what the Bible is actually saying here is God is the God of all strength, not of fuzzy blankets. He is the God of fuzzy blankets, but fuzzy blankets have no importance here. So comfort is actually strengthening. What you're doing is if you're comforting somebody, you're helping them get through something, right? And maybe it's something that you've already been through. Maybe it's not. Maybe you're just using godly wisdom to help them. Yeah. If he's the God of all comfort, what if that's meaning not for this lifetime? Okay, well, I would agree with that. But this happens to be talking about the present. But there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's a perfect way to think. So look forward to, right? Look forward to heaven. Even though we have no idea what's going on up there. But it sounds good. And God said it was good, so it must be, right? Because I can ask anybody in here, I can ask all of you, describe heaven to me, and every single one of you is going to give a different answer. There's not going to be spaghetti in heaven. No. Mm-mm. If I'm going to be there, there's not going to be spaghetti, okay? I'm sorry. So the God of all comfort, in verse 4 it says, who comforts us in all our affliction, so that we will be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. Okay. So, if God is the God of all comfort, when does God comfort us? When we need it. Are you sure? Are you sure? You said all the time. Wait, what was that? When you tap into it. So let me ask you this, right? I gotta turn this one air conditioner off because it keeps blowing in the microphone, drives me crazy. When you have something happen to you that you consider is an affliction, where are you supposed to turn to? Where do you turn to? That's an internal question, right? So inside, answer that question. There's people that turn to physical violence, right? They get abusive. These are extreme cases. I'm just giving you some to help you think. There's people that turn to alcohol or drugs to ease the affliction. There's people that turn to inappropriate physical intimacy. Wow, waded through that one. There's people that turn to food. That's why we have comfort food, because you're going through an affliction and you want to eat something that makes you feel good, right? So your mashed potatoes and gravy or your spaghetti is because you had a bad day and you just want to come home and eat something that makes you happy. In none of those situations are you turning to God. So if you don't want to repeat the affliction, you have to be strengthened. If you have to be strengthened, who are you going to turn to? God. So, here's the rub, right? Here's the difficulty. That means you have to consciously make a decision to turn to God to be comforted. That's where life gets difficult. Because nobody's ever taught you your entire life that the first place you should run to for comfort is God. Your entire life you've been taught to, if your parents are still alive, and you're not over the age of, 50, first place you usually run when you're really in trouble is your parents. You call them up, you're like, I got something, I've never come across this before, I don't know how to handle it. Maybe your spouse, maybe. Men, probably not so much. Women, they'll share with you, but they don't want you to fix it, right? Men will just sweep it under the rug and hide it. They'll talk to anybody else other than their spouse. You talk to go to your friends, right? And misery loves company, doesn't it? So if you're having a hard time in your marriage and your friend gets divorced or got divorced and you call them for comfort, what is probably going to happen to you? You're probably going to get divorced. Why? They're not going to give the best advice because they're not interested in strengthening you, because only God can strengthen you. And this is a difficult concept for people to understand because we learn from each other, right? So, if you come to church and you learn something from church and you say, wow, I learned something tonight, you didn't learn it from the person teaching it, you learned it from God. It came from God through that person. If you learn something in an environment, it's because it was given to you by God. God is the God of all comfort. So he's the God of all strengthening. And does he ever comfort us when we're happy? Or content? Or excited about something? Or no. Why? Because those are, right, you don't ask him for it because those are the times that you seldom ever seek God. Can I give you all a piece of advice? The next time you have a success in life, the next time something good happens, go to God first. Go to God first. Right? Don't celebrate. Don't get lax. Because that good thing may not be from God. And you may need strengthening. It's such a weird way to look at things. It sounds so miserable, but when you get down to like actually understanding your relationship with God, it's actually the most beautiful thing in the world, because he's literally saying to you, if you're going to go through this, I'll make sure you're strong enough to make it out. I will make sure you will make it out. right? You will survive this. And he's not doing that. He's doing that because he loves you, but he's not doing that just for you. He's doing that so that you can be his voice for other people down the road. So when you're going through something that is difficult, which is kind of funny, we were just talking about this, right? When you're going through something that is difficult, the best way to look at it, however hard this may be to swallow, is you're going to be a source of light for somebody else when it's over. Isn't that amazing? Like God's actually going to use you to accomplish something. Verse 4, did we finish it? No. It says, who comforts us in all our afflictions so that we will be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we comfort with, screwed that up, who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. So God strengthens us, gives us the ability to strengthen somebody else through him, right? He works through you, but you're the one that is there doing it. In verse 5, it says, for just as the sufferings of Christ are ours in abundance, so also our comfort is abundant through Christ. Okay. This one's a little weird for you. So if I say to you the sufferings through Christ are abundant, and we're reading this letter from Paul's perspective, where is Paul when he wrote this letter? I think he's in prison, right? Even if he's not, he's about to be or has been. He's been in a shipwreck. I'm pretty sure this one was written in prison. I'm not 100% sure. I hate when I do stuff like that. But anyway, doesn't matter. He's had a rough go. And we all know that, right? So if he's had a rough go, why has he had a rough go? Yeah, but why? Why was it brought upon him? Because he was a Christian, right? Have any of you ever been seriously persecuted? And I mean honestly. Have you ever seriously been persecuted for being a Christian? No. Are those times coming? More than likely. They're not here yet, right? And most of us have never experienced that. So if the Bible's talking to us as if we're going through this now, then it must not be talking to us from Paul's perspective. It must be talking to us from our perspective. Right? So what could it possibly mean? It says, for just as the sufferings of Christ are ours in abundance, so also our comfort is abundant through Christ. Why did Christ suffer? Let me be specific. That was too open-ended. Why did Christ suffer on the cross? For you, right? And me, us. But what for? To save your soul. Okay. So why would your soul be in danger? I want you to think now. Come on. What did you say, Macy? Because we're sinful. I know our suffering does not compare, Tara. You're correct. There's no way our suffering will ever compare to what Christ went through, right? So he suffered on the cross for our sin. Okay? How many people sin today? Raise your hand. Okay, everybody but Gabe. Awesome. Good job, Gabe. You're the only one who made it through the day. Probably all of us did in some way, shape, or form. Okay? It could be a moment of anger. It could be a bad thought. It could be something you actually did, like, stealing paper clips from school. You know what I'm saying? I want you to think about a sin that you're ashamed of right now. First of all, stop it. Because it's been forgiven. Second of all, that suffering that you just experienced, that is the suffering through Christ. Because what he suffered for on the cross was that sin that you just thought about. That was what he was up on a cross for. And your discomfort that you just experienced when you think about that sin that you just thought about, that's suffering. Again, not on his scale, but on your scale. So this crazy thing happens to us that, here's what happens, right? And I hate this because this drives me crazy. And actually one of the people that cemented this in my mind is here today. If we sin, and I'm not talking about I mean the stuff that you're like, oh, what is wrong with me? Those kind of things, right? And we all do them. If we sin on that level, and it truly bothers us, what is our first response? You said forgiveness, right? What is y'all's first response? Guilt? Blame? Where do you go? Oh, there you go, boom. Right, you don't feel worthy, right? So there is somebody sitting in this room tonight that said to me that if I walk in that building, the building will probably fall down. That is an example of somebody allowing the sin in their life to drive them away from God. If you're being driven away from God by your sin, are you being strengthened? No. When you sin and you run to God instead of running away, you will be comforted. In the definition as we have defined it tonight, meaning you will be strengthened. Okay? So let's say, I don't know, you get hot-headed and cut somebody off in traffic, and afterwards you're like, oh, man, I feel horrible about that. Like, that is just, I don't know what kind of day they were having. What was I thinking? I'm not that important, right? And it bothers you, and you're suffering from it. If you take that and run to God, He is going to do something with that. If you take it and you run away from Him, it's going to burden you, and nothing's going to be done about it. And you think that your warm, fuzzy blanket comforting yourself because you're running away from God, but you're actually doing worse because you're letting something that bothers you fester. It'll just sit back there. You won't know it's there. Just every now and then it'll just kind of like nag at you, like bite at you, pinch at you a little bit, until you're worn down to the point that you're no longer interested in having a relationship with the Lord because you don't feel worthy. Let me explain something to you right now so we're absolutely clear. You have never, ever been worthy to be in the presence of God. But by grace go I. So the moment that you determine that you are not worthy, you have determined that the sacrifice on the cross that Jesus made was not enough. That's a scary thought, isn't it? So when you sin, however complicated your sin is or how little it is, if it bothers you, okay? If, taking paper clips from school or borrowing a pen and not giving it back or murdering somebody in a parking lot at midnight, whatever your scale is, if you run away from God, you're denying Jesus. That's pretty intense, isn't it? So this comfort thing, all of a sudden, you start to understand it, and here's why. So we can get back to our classical definition of comfort of warm, fuzzy blanket, right? So here's how we get back there. If I know that Jesus Christ died on the cross for me, and when I do something wrong, I'm ashamed of it, and instead of running away, I choose to run to Him, guess what He does? He sets me free. I have been strengthened, which means that hopefully, now we're hard-headed human beings, so it takes a lot of baseball bats to the head to get us right, but by the strengthening, I am hoping to never repeat that behavior again. I've been made stronger. Not perfect. I'll probably mess up, but I'm working on it, right? I've been strengthened. And then I also don't have that nagging thing in the back because I already know I'm not worthy to be in the presence of the Lord, and He's allowing me in His presence anyway. So, yeah, I stole the candy bar from the candy store when I was 6 years old. Jesus paid for it. Have I ever stole a candy bar ever again? Nope. Have I ever stole anything ever again? I don't think so. I don't want to stand up here and lie, right? But not intentional. Isn't that an amazing way to look at the comfort of God? When you stop and you look at it that way, you're like, okay, now I get it. So this feeling, the sufferings that you feel when you feel guilty, or what is the fancy church word we use for that? Conviction, right? When you feel convicted, you're suffering the way that Christ suffered on the cross. Minuscule, but you're suffering. Kind of like how Paul, I mean, this sounds horrible to say out loud, but this is how we should approach this reading. Kind of like how Paul was suffering by sitting in prison because he was serving the Lord. You see, here's the thing about suffering and sin. If you sin and you suffer, and you're suffering because you know you're disappointing God or have done something that He doesn't like, right? I don't know of a better way to put that. So if you're suffering because of something you've done and you're worried about how God feels about it, aren't you in fact serving Him? In a twisted kind of way, because you're saying, I know that behavior that I just did was not what you like, and I really want to do what you like. That's serving Him. You're not doing a good job. You're still recognizing the fact that He is God, and He wants you to do a certain thing. It's like if you're a chef, and every night you prepare beautiful meals, and everybody's always like, oh, it's the best food in the world. And that one night that you burn the toast, everybody's like, you're fired. Right? We don't have that approach to life, do we? We're like, look, you just burnt the toast. It's no big deal. You're still trying to be the best chef. Okay, that's how I want you to look at your Christian life. Sometimes you're going to burn the toast. Not the end of the world. Right. Run back to Him. Run back to Him. Do not be shamed away from God, because He is your comforter. And then once you learn that act of being, I guess the word, maybe we can use the word comfort properly, right? By being embraced by Christ, by Him literally like throwing His arms around you and holding on to you and saying, it's okay that you screwed up. Let's just work on it, right? I'm here for you. I'm sitting next to you. I'm holding you. I'm drying your tears. I'm doing whatever. I'm comforting you. It's okay. You learn two things that are so important in your relationship with God. One is humility. I have said this time and time again. I will say it until I am dead. If you ever come across somebody in church that insists that they don't sin or doesn't act humble, run away from them. Especially if they're in a leadership position. Run. Because when you are comforted by Christ, that is the ultimate humility. And here's why. Do you honestly in your heart feel like you deserve what Christ gave you? If the answer is no, congratulations. That's humility. He died for you anyway. The moment you learn humility, guess what you can do? You can give it to other people. And I don't mean that in a negative way it sounds. I mean, somebody comes to you and they're like, oh, I've been stealing $10 from my bowling league every Thursday night for the past 20 years. I can't live with myself anymore. Instead of you coming at them, calling them a thief and a liar and a cheat and calling the whole bowling team and letting everybody know that they messed up, you know humility, so what do? Talk to them. You comfort them. Right? Let's work on a plan of restitution. I'll allow you to come up with it. Isn't that what you do with Jesus? He's already forgiven you, but in your mind, don't you do that with him? You're like, look, I know I messed up. I'll tell you what. I'll do this, this, and this. A plan of restitution. Lord, I will try my best to not say that word anymore. My goodness, if I don't have that discussion with him 20 times a week. Right? I do not want to use that language anymore. 10 minutes later, what am I doing? I'm getting hot-headed and angry about something, and poof, off I go. What's the difference? You learned that from him. You pass it on to other people. Humility. So now you've learned how to be humble, which gives you the capability of how to strengthen somebody else. So by you being weak, you've learned how to make other people strong through God. Man, that makes life so much easier, doesn't it? So next time you mess up, who do you run to? Right out the gate. Like, do not wait. He already knows. It's not like he was over here, like looking over here, and you're back there doing your thing, and he was like, what just happened? He knows. So run to him. He does. That conviction, that's the suffering that they're talking about, right? That's how you know. That's how you know he's ready to strengthen you. He's ready for you to run to him and for him to say, okay, let me put another board on your wall. For just as, verse 5 again, for just as the sufferings of Christ are ours in abundance, so also our comfort is abundant through Christ. So every time we feel these pangs of guilt or conviction or whatever you want to call it, every time we can run to Jesus. Every time we run to him, the bucket of grace is still full. You cannot empty his bucket of grace. It's impossible. That's what the word abundant means. Like not unusable, unemptiable, however. It can't be consumed all the way. There'll always be grace. So let's say that you have a problem with something. And you repeatedly, you're like, oh, man, I feel horrible. And you repeatedly run to Jesus. What's he always going to do? He's always going to comfort you. Now, at some point, hopefully, you'd be like, okay, maybe it's time I got it together and stop doing this. Right? But then again, that strength comes from God. Verse 6. If we are afflicted, it is for your comfort and salvation. Or if we are comforted, it is for your comfort, which is effective in the patient enduring of the same sufferings which we also suffer. What did you say? Unity. So here's the thing. Here's what we have to ultimately be aware of. Anytime we suffer, it's so we're strengthened so that we can help somebody else. Anytime we're comforted, it's a reminder that other people can be comforted. Right? So the more you run to God, the more you understand that he's always going to be there for you and he's willing to work with you, then the more you understand that he's always going to be there and he's willing to work with you. So you will go from, yeah, I broke into a car at 11:30 p.m. last night. I smashed a window and took a lady's purse off the front seat. And you'll run to God with that. You will go from that to, Lord, I apologize for wishing that my car had missile launchers because this car in front of me would be evaporated right now. Right? I'm giving you silly examples, but that's my point. The more you go to him, the better you get at going to him, the better you get at learning his comfort. So you start to analyze yourself more. You start to be more aware of all the little sins that everybody overlooks that you know that he paid for on the cross. Isn't that nuts how that works? So the more you're aware of how much you sin, the more humble you become. The more humble you become, the more he becomes your Lord and Savior, because you can't believe that he was willing to do this for you. And once you learn that, you get to share that with other people. That is literally the gospel. That's the good news. Right? So you can go to, anybody can come to you. Anybody can come to you. And there's nothing that they can say where you're like, I can't handle that. Because you've been there, you've done it, you've seen it, you've felt it, you've done it all. I have heard things as a pastor that I thought I would never, ever in my life hear. And probably the first few times I heard it, I was like, wow, this is what I'm in for? Right? But the more you go through life, you realize everybody has the same set of problems. They're just different circumstances. Which is why we're all welcome. Right? A heroin addict has just as much chance of getting into heaven as does a straight A student that's never done a thing wrong in their life. Because they're both sinners. And the only way that you recognize that is through comfort. But here's the crazy thing. A lot of times, when we experience something that is less than favorable, we take a mark of self-pity. Like, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me. Why me? Why is my life always going wrong? Why do bad things always happen to me? Why did that when the tree blew over, why did it have to hit my house? Why couldn't it hit my neighbors? Why did I have to get in a car accident today? Why did I have to lose my job? Why? Oh, it's me. And you start to sound like Job. And Job was annoying. I don't know if you remember when we went through it in Bible study. Not a fun guy. Wouldn't want to hang out with him at parties. Did he have things going on that I wouldn't want going on? Absolutely. Don't be Job. Why? Focus on himself, right? Self-pity. So here's the thing. The only people that experience self-pity are the people that will not run to God when they're in trouble. And here's why. Because if you run to God when you're in trouble, you are being strengthened by him. If you are being strengthened by him, how in the heck can you possibly feel pity for yourself? Because God is directly involved in your life. There is no way that you can immerse yourself in self-pity if you run to God for comfort, because he is strengthening you. So the moment you're going through something that you don't like, is uncomfortable, makes you sad, however you want to put it, can be devastating. It can be the worst thing you've ever imagined, or it could be the tiniest thing that just sets you off. You run to God, you will not feel sorry for yourself. That doesn't mean you won't be sad. It doesn't mean that your mood won't, you won't be moody. It just means you won't wallow in self-pity. You won't feel sorry for yourself. Because God is involved in your life. At that moment, he is strengthening you. How could that possibly make you sad? The thing is you've got to share this view with other people. Everybody here has had bad stuff happen to them, right? Some I would consider worse than others, but there's been some trauma in this room. Most of it I know about. If you hold on to that, what are you teaching people? There's no hope? That God doesn't love you? Yeah, bad stuff happens to good people. Is that something you say to somebody? No. Bad stuff does happen to good people. Happens to bad people too. Bad stuff happens all the time. Now, if you approach people and explain to them that this is a moment where they could have a turning point in their life, which they're not going to want to hear right then and there, I'm well aware of that, but by your actions, they will see that they're literally being worked on by God. And who doesn't want that? Because we are slowly supposed to be slowly transforming into whom our entire life? Jesus. And when we go to heaven, we will be most like him that we'll ever be. Right? We can't ever be Jesus. We're never going to be Jesus. But we'll be close enough because we're in his presence, completely covered by his grace with no outside distractions. And your whole life, you're supposed to be transforming yourself, trying to get as close as you can before the cutoff comes, before God says, I need you upstairs. So this view needs to be shared in your life so others will begin to live by it, so that they too can experience comfort, which translates to growth in Christ, being strengthened. Which goes back to our original verse that we started out with, which was verse 3, and then we're done for the night. Our hope, we talked about heaven, right? Heaven gives you hope. Our hope must reside in this principle. That God strengthens you throughout your whole life. You must have hope in that. So that when something comes to you that is not good news, you can handle it. That you don't fall apart, the wheels don't fall off. Right? You can still ugly cry. You can still rant and rave. You can raise your fist at him. But in the end, as long as you know that he's working on you, that he's there to strengthen you, and by that strengthening, it's going to be comfort, then everything's okay. Not great, it's okay. The key to this, though, is this is how we turn the tables on evil. And just stop and think about that for a second. If misery loves company, which is a popular saying, don't think it's in Scripture anywhere, right? But misery does love company. People love miserable people if they're miserable. And right now, the whole world is busy tearing everybody down. If you're successful, you didn't earn it. You don't deserve it. The people that think that they deserve stuff haven't earned it. Right? The world is a mess. How do you defeat that? Well, if you annihilate self-pity, it can no longer exist. Self-pity is one of the greatest forms of evil because it's self-worship. And if you're busy worshiping yourself, you're not busy worshiping God. How's that for comfort? That's it for tonight. 2 Corinthians 1, 3 through 7. You guys can take that home and let it stew. You can think about it while you're eating spaghetti. And again, if you have, even the people that are watching, if you're not watching on TV and you're watching on a computer, if you have topics you would like, throw them in the comments section. There's things y'all in here want to cover, let's do it, because that's what we're here for. If I don't hear from anybody, I'll come up with something else next week. All I'm asking, I'm not giving readings. I'm just asking you bring your paper Bible and be here at 7 o'clock because we have to start on time because we're putting it on the internet. Okay? Thank you for coming tonight. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Maybe we'll have a 30-minute sermon instead of 45.